Alright guys, today we're taking a look at a full breakdown of the character creation in Dragon Age the Veilguard. This is going to be much more extensive than any other Dragon Age game in the series, but there are some big changes compared to Inquisition. On one side, your race or lineage will no longer give you any passive bonuses. Instead, you're going to get those from your faction selection. In the meantime, we're going to begin with the lineage. This is going to be your selection of races. We have the same 4 races as before, including the elves, Qunari, humans, as well as the dwarves. Like I said, these are now purely aesthetic, so you no longer get passive buffs such as an extra skill point from the human, or for example extra defense buffs from the Qunari, and so on and so forth. We're going to get slightly more meaningful buffs from the faction selection a bit later down in the menu. In the meantime, we can go ahead and cycle appearance right here from this button for each individual lineage. However, we are going to use the sliders in just a little bit for a more customizable approach. But as you see right here at the bottom right, we also have a function to import characters, and that's going to help quite a ton if you just want to import a preset that you or somebody else may have created in the past, or maybe if you just suck in general at creating beautiful looking characters, you may find a better one somewhere online. But once we're done with that, we can then jump into appearance, and this is where it truly becomes crazy, because you have about 9 categories controlling everything from your head to your body, eyes, mouth, ears, even makeup and markings, and all of them have subcategories that further give more control over your character. So a very deep customization system. I'm not gonna lie, I really like it. Plus, you have control over different lighting conditions so that you can see how your character looks like in different environments, in different lighting conditions, controlling right here from the bottom right corner of the screen. Now, going over the head section, we of course have the head shape, bringing back the same, triangle controls as we had in Inquisition. This is better suited if you want to make sure your character's head fits perfectly with the body of choice, so this slider will give you some options for that. But you can also go ahead and select any of the dozen or so presets in each and every single direction, so you can either use the sliders or just go for the ones that are already pre-made. From here, we have the complexion. Now, complexion is pretty interesting. We have over 40 complexions to choose between, anything from more rugged to more smooth looks. So you can create any sort of old or young character and everything else in between, even like rosy cheeks and all of that. Plus a lot of skin tones to choose between. There are a ton of options here, even for vitiligo and how much of that you have on the skin level. So level of customization here is really, really good. Then moving on to the head and the control over the remaining of the head. Of course, you have a lot of sliders here. How wide, how flat it is, how much spacing there is between each individual face part, even the ears, nose, eyes, cheekbones, and all of that. You can also make odd shaped looking heads, like if you want an egg head of sorts or look like some kind of mega mind, you can probably do that from the scalp sliders as well. So like I said, many options. Then we have the body, and for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to show any nudity, but you do have control over nudity over here as well, including choices of underwear. Again, you have sliders for the body if you want it more muscular, if you want it thinner or wider, and all of that. So you can again create many shapes. Speaking of shapes, you also have control over different parts of the body, so the height, the width of your shoulders, also the bulge, the chest size. So I know some of you crazy mofos are into that, so if you really enjoy that, you're probably going to enjoy this character creation as well. But moving on to some of the fine details, like I said, very minute details on every single part of the face, very small things you can fiddle with. Eye color, even different eye colors for the different eyes, or different parts of the eyes having different colors, like the middle part of the iris, the inner part of the iris, outer, Sierra, and all sorts of stuff like that. Plus, of course, the choices of eyes also have options for saturation and brightness. So again, this is some of the most extensive character control of any BioWare game I've seen up until now. Nothing too crazy in terms of crazy colors. They still look on the natural side, but once mods come in on the PC, it's probably going to get truly wild. Hairstyles also get quite crazy. We have about 88 options to choose between. They are also really well made, plus you have options both for male and female characters, and plus hair physics are pretty much on point, at least from the hands-on session we had. So overall, it's going to make your character look pretty good. Plus control over the color, saturation, and brightness of the colors that you pick. On top of this, we also have the makeup, so you can either choose between a number of presets, like a bit under a dozen of these presets you can go ahead and choose between. There's also eye makeup, lip makeup, and yeah, blush, all of that stuff that if you're interested in, you can go ahead and pick. We didn't fiddle too much with this. You can also pick the tattoos, the scars, and the paint, but for the most part, this controls like intensity and color. I don't think you have options to place them differently on the body, at least not from the sliders I've seen. Now, once we're done with this, we get to jump into the classes. It's no longer the first thing you choose like in Inquisition, it's pretty much the third option right here. And the neat part is that you now have a preview of each individual class and its 3 specializations. Now, some of these specializations are kind of similar to how they were in Inquisition. For example, Duelist. It's kind of similar to Tempest back in Inquisition. There are even some returning skills such as the 1000 Cuts, but they play quite a lot more different, and there are other completely new abilities, like a lot of new abilities that we did not have before. Also completely new specs, like the Reaper for the Warrior is a really cool one, steals life and kind of plays with this whole death mechanic, which is really nice. Also Spellblade for the Mage. It's kind of like the Knight Enchanter back in Inquisition, but there are some big things changed to it compared to before. You play with an orb and a dagger this time around, and there are some big changes in there too. So that's going to be your selection. You of course can also go over some of these outfit options. You can see how they look at high level, mid level, and low level to kind of give you a general idea over their respective aesthetic. And the same is going to be with the faction. You can also see your faction gear right from the screen right here. You can expect to get this type of look when you reach, I'm not sure if it's going to be the max with the faction, but eventually you will get these suits for these respective alignments that you get. So let's go over all of the factions you can choose in the game. We have 6 starting ones, including some that are making a return from previous games, so you might recognize the Grey Wardens, but we also have Veil Jumpers, Shadow Dragons, Lords of Fortune, Morn Watch, and the Antivan Crows. And as you can see on the side right here, they have a short description as well as a number of bonuses. And the first bonus is that you gain extra reputation with whichever faction you align yourself with initially. You gain it much more quickly. So this is going to help you to max out that reputation and gain all of those faction items that you're going to find at their specific vendor headquarters. But this doesn't mean that you cannot align and increase reputation with other factions in the game. You totally can by just doing missions for them as you progress in the game, and even gain access to their faction specific loot. This is just going to be a bonus on top of that. But beyond that, you also gain 2 additional buffs on top. One is going to be a bonus damage increase to a specific type of enemy, and another one is just going to be a passive, like how Races or Lineage used to handle it in the past. So for example, in the case of the Grey Wardens, you're going to get Blight Killer, which increases your damage against the Dark Spawn. In the story, the Grey Wardens are fighting the Blight, so this is going to help quite a lot in those situations. Plus you get Vigilant Training, base defense and health are slightly increased, meaning that this can be better suited for a warrior slash tank sort of build. Like if you enjoyed, I don't know, Blackwall back in Inquisition, this is pretty much going to be up your alley. Then we have the Veil Jumpers. This is going to give you a damage increase versus Fate-touched enemies, and the Kenai, which is going to deal slightly increased critical and weak point damage. So this is going to overall be one of the best options for rogues, especially if you're going with something like a Veil Jumper rogue. This is going to give you a ton of benefits. If you really like bow and arrow and maybe have some extra magic on top, this can fit very well. But even a duelist rogue can take a lot of benefits from this, since a lot of your damage will exploit weak points and be based on critical damage. Then we have the Shadow Dragons. This is going to deal increased damage versus Venatori, but also gives you Resourceful, which is going to make your class-specific resource generation slightly faster. So this is something that can be way better for a mage. You're very dependent on mana generation. As you perform light attacks, you generate mana, so this is going to just help you a ton to generate that a little bit faster. But other classes can also work really well with this. Again, rogues can fit here too, so it's not a one size fits all kind of glove here. You can totally put any other class you want to. Now, if you choose to be a Lords of Fortune, you're going to get extra damage versus mercenaries, but you also get a relentless buff, performing takedowns on enemies with slightly less effort. So this likely means that you don't have to bring them to that low HP to be able to pull off a takedown. You may be able to pull it off a bit earlier than that. So this can actually be quite helpful. More on Watch, it's going to let you deal increased damage versus undead and demons, which can be quite abundant in this game. And you also get Acute Affliction. You can apply an additional affliction attack on target, or well, sorry, stack on target. So this may help if you play with an Evoker Mage or maybe with a Reaper Warrior. You can apply some of those death debuffs on the target, but I'm pretty sure that the Rogue also has a variant of death too. I know we can apply Blight with one of these Blight Rain of Arrows that we can use with one of the builds. Plus, you also have the bleeds of them. So there are many stacks you can apply on the target, but we didn't have a chance to test this in our hands-on session. We're gonna have to wait until the full game comes out to see how you can take more benefit out of it. And finally, we also have the Uneven Crows. You're going to deal increased damage versus the Anthem and your Hidden Pouch here, which means you're going to hold an extra potion. That's going to be the buff that you get from it. In my opinion, this is the best looking of them all, but has the weakest of the stats. So probably something that I would pick purely for role-playing purposes. All the others feel much stronger, especially if you're going with some specialized builds, but again, we're gonna have to wait and see if that's going to be the case in the full game. Now, from this point on, we also have the playstyle. Now, playstyle, like I said in the preview hands-on video, is pretty much your difficulty scaling. So you have 5 options to go between, from super easy to super difficult, plus of course a 6th one, which is a custom one. You can customize the level of difficulty as you see fit. So you can affect stuff like how much damage enemies deal to you, how much HP they have, how aggressive they are, even your parry and defensive windows. So how easy it is for you to perform perfect parries, for example, against targets. You can control them and even see them by these points right here to the right side. But overall, this is something that you can control even later down the line, so just pick advantage